The world didn't stop spinning when they called me a flawed omega, but it felt like it should have. At 16, standing in the sterile office of the designation clinic, I heard the words that branded me. Insufficient pheromone production, incomplete bonding instincts. A broken cog in the hierarchy of alphas, betas, and omegas that ruled our society, a system as rigid as the steel lockers lining Willow Creek High's halls. I was Eli Carter, the kid who didn't fit, and that was my crime. The designation hung over me like a storm cloud as I navigated the crowded quad of Willow Creek High in suburban Colorado. It was senior year, and the air buzzed with the scent of fresh-cut grass and teenage ambition. Alphas strutted like kings, betas blended seamlessly, and omegas like me, well, the normal ones, were coveted, their pheromones drawing admiring glances. But me? I was invisible. Or worse, pitted. My scent was faint, barely there, a whisper where others roared. Classmates whispered behind cupped hands, their eyes darting to me in biology class when we studied designation genetics. Flawed. The word followed me like a shadow. That morning, I kept my head down, clutching my sketchbook as I weaved through the chaos of first period. My best friend, Mara, a beta with a sharp tongue and brighter hair, nudged me. Eli, stop slouching. You're not a ghost. Her grin was all warmth, but it couldn't melt the knot in my chest. I might as well be, I muttered, adjusting my glasses. At least ghosts don't get stared at for being defective. Mara rolled her eyes. You're not defective. You're just limited edition. She winked, but I didn't laugh. Limited edition didn't help when every omega was expected to be perfect, pliable, desirable, bondable. I was none of those things. The bell rang, and we shuffled toward chemistry. That's when I felt it, a prickle on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I turned, scanning the crowd, and my breath caught. Jackson Reed, the school's most notorious alpha, leaned against a locker, his dark eyes fixed on me. At 18, Jackson was a legend in Willow Creek. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline that could cut glass. He was the kind of alpha who commanded attention without trying. Rumors swirled about him. He'd fought off 3 alphas at once. His pheromones could make an omega faint from 10 feet away, and he never bonded with anyone. Ever. Why was he staring at me? Eli moved. Mara tugged my sleeve, snapping me out of it. I shook my head, heart pounding, and hurried into class. But the weight of Jackson's gaze lingered, heavy as a promise I didn't understand. Chemistry was a blur of Bunsen burners and equations I barely followed. My mind kept drifting to Jackson. Why had he looked at me like that? It wasn't pity. His eyes held something else, something sharp and unreadable. I doodled in my sketchbook, sketching the curve of his jaw without meaning to, then slammed it shut when Mara peeked over. Obsessed much? She teased. I'm not obsessed, I hissed, cheeks burning. He was staring. It was weird. Weird's one word for it. Mara smirked. Jackson doesn't stare at anyone. Maybe he's finally noticed the mysterious Eli Carter. I snorted. Yeah, right. He probably just smelled my epic failure of a scent and got curious. But Mara's word stuck with me. Jackson wasn't just any alpha. He was the one who'd walked away from every omega who threw themselves at him. The one who'd shut down a bully with a single glare. If he was noticing me, it wasn't because I was special. It was because I was a puzzle he didn't understand. By lunch, I'd convinced myself it was a fluke. I sat with Mara under the oak tree in the quad, picking at my sandwich, when a shadow fell over us. My stomach dropped as I looked up. Jackson stood there, all 6'2" of him, his leather jacket slung over one shoulder. The quad seemed to hush, eyes turning toward us. Eli, right? His voice was low, smooth, like gravel and honey. My name on his lips sent a shiver down my spine. Yeah. I fumbled, my sandwich forgotten. Mara's eyebrows shot up. Jackson tilted his head, studying me. You dropped this. He held out a pencil, one of mine, with teeth marks from nervous chewing. I hadn't even noticed it was gone. Thanks, I mumbled, reaching for it. Our fingers brushed, and a jolt shot through me, like static, but deeper, warmer. His eyes flickered, and for a split second, I swore I saw something soften in them. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me staring after him, heart hammering. Mara grabbed my arm. What was that? I don't know, I whispered. But I did know one thing. Jackson Reed, the most feared alpha in school, had just singled me out, and I had no idea why. That night, I couldn't sleep. My tiny bedroom, cluttered with sketchbooks and half-finished poems, felt too small to contain the questions swirling in my head. Why had Jackson noticed me? Was it a prank? A dare? I stared at the ceiling, replaying that moment under the oak tree. His voice, his eyes, the way his presence seemed to pull the air from my lungs. The next day, it got worse. Jackson was everywhere. In the hallway, his gaze found me through the crowd. In the library, he sat 2 tables away, flipping through a book, but glancing at me every few minutes. By Wednesday, I was a nervous wreck, jumping every time I caught a whiff of his cedar and storm scent, a scent so potent it made my head spin, even with my flawed senses. On Thursday, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered Mara in art class, whispering, "He's following me. I'm not imagining it." She grinned. "Maybe he's into you." "That's insane," I snapped. "He's Jackson Reed. I'm me." But doubt not at me. That afternoon, I ducked into the art room to finish a painting, hoping for some peace. The room was empty, the air thick with the smell of paint and turpentine. I was halfway through a stroke when the door creaked open. Jackson. He didn't say a word, just leaned against the wall, watching me. My brush froze midair. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. He stepped closer, his boots heavy on the hardwood floor. "You're different," he said, almost to himself. "Why is that?" My heart thudded. "Because I'm flawed. Everyone knows it." His eyes narrowed, not with anger but with something fiercer, like he was trying to see through me. "Flawed," he repeated, like the word tasted wrong. "That's what they call it." I swallowed, gripping my brush. "That's what I am." He took another step, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the pull of his scent. "You're wrong," he said, his voice low and certain. "You're not flawed. You're something else." Before I could respond, he turned and left, the door swinging shut behind him. I stood there, paint dripping onto the floor, my world tilting on its axis. Jackson Reed didn't just see me, he saw something in me I didn't. And for the first time, I wondered if being flawed wasn't the whole story. The art room encounter haunted me all weekend. Jackson's words, "You're not flawed, you're something else," echoed in my mind like a song I couldn't shake. By Monday, I was a mess of nerves, half expecting him to appear around every corner, half hoping he would. Willow Creek High felt different now, like the air itself was charged with his presence. In English class, I tried to focus on The Great Gatsby, but my eyes kept drifting to the window, where the quads stretched out under a gray September sky. Mara noticed, of course. "You're acting like he proposed," she whispered, poking me with her pen. "He didn't propose," I shot back, blushing. "He's just confusing." "Confusing's one way to put it." She smirked. "The guy's a walking enigma. But he's got a whole fan club of Omegas losing their minds over him." I didn't want to think about that. Jackson didn't seem like the type to care about fan clubs, but what did I know? He was an alpha, untouchable, a storm wrapped in human skin. And I was just Eli, the kid who couldn't even produce a proper scent. But then it happened again. At lunch, I was alone. Mara had a debate club meeting, when Jackson appeared, tray in hand, and sat across from me without a word. The quad went quiet, eyes turning like we were a spectacle. My sandwich froze halfway to my mouth. Hi," I managed, my voice cracking. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened, just a fraction. "You always eat alone?" "No. I mean sometimes. Mara's at a thing." I was rambling, my cheeks burning. "Why are you here?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his scent hitting me like a wave. "Cedar, storm, something wild." "Because I want to be," he said simply. I blinked, my brain short-circuiting. "But what?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up an apple from his tray and rolled it between his palms, studying me. "You don't act like other Omegas," he said finally. "You don't try to please anyone. You don't perform." I bristled. Maybe because I can't. You know, flawed and all. He shook his head, a flicker of frustration crossing his face. Stop saying that. It's not true. Then what is? I snapped, surprising myself. You keep showing up, saying weird stuff, and I don't get it. What do you want from me? His eyes locked on mine, intense enough to steal my breath. I don't know yet, he admitted, his voice quieter. But I can't stay away. My heart stopped. Before I could respond, he stood, grabbed his tray, and walked off, leaving me staring at the empty space where he'd been. The quad buzzed back to life, but I barely noticed. Jackson Reed, the most feared alpha in school, had just admitted he couldn't stay away from me. Me. That afternoon, I hid in the library, trying to process it all. The stacks were my sanctuary, a place where no one cared about designations or pheromones. I was flipping through a book on surrealist art when I heard footsteps. My stomach twisted as Jackson appeared, his silhouette sharp against the fluorescent lights. You're hard to find, he said, leaning against a shelf. Maybe I don't want to be found, I shot back, but my voice lacked conviction. He stepped closer, his scent wrapping around me, making my head swim. You're scared, he said, not accusingly but like he was stating a fact. Of course I am. I shut the book, clutching it like a shield. You're Jackson Reed. You're you, and I'm nobody. His jaw tightened. You're not nobody. You're Eli Carter, and you're driving me crazy. I laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. Me? Driving you crazy? That's rich. He didn't laugh. Instead, he reached out, his fingers grazing my wrist. The touch was light, but it sent a shock through me, like a spark igniting dry grass. I'm serious, he said. I've tried to ignore it, but you're different. Your scent, it's faint, but it's there. It's real. It's you. I pulled my hand back, heart pounding. My sense of failure. Everyone says so. Everyone's wrong. His voice was fierce now, almost angry. They don't know you. They don't see you. And you do? I challenged, my voice shaking. He didn't answer, but his eyes said enough. They burned with something I couldn't name, want, need, maybe both. For a moment, I thought he might close the distance between us, but then he stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I'll see you around, Eli, he said, and then he was gone. The rest of the week was a blur. Jackson didn't approach me again, but I felt him everywhere, his gaze in the halls, his scent lingering in the air. By Friday, I was exhausted, torn between wanting to confront him and wanting to hide forever. Mara, of course, had no patience for my indecision. You need to talk to him, she said at lunch, stealing one of my fries. He's clearly into you. And you're into him, so stop pretending you're not. I'm not into him. I lied, my face heating up. He's just intense. Intense is hot, she said with a grin. Come on, Eli. You're not flawed. You're you. Maybe he sees that. Her words stuck with me as I headed to my last class, gym. I hated gym. Too many alphas showing off, too many eyes judging my lanky frame. But today, something felt different. As we lined up for dodgeball, I caught Jackson watching me from across the gym. Not mocking, not pitying, just watching, like I was the only person in the room. When the game started, I tried to focus, but a dodgeball came flying at me, too fast to dodge. I braced for impact, but it never came. Jackson was there, catching the ball midair, his body shielding mine. The gym went quiet, all eyes on us. You okay? He asked, his voice low, meant only for me. I nodded, too stunned to speak. He tossed the ball back, his hand brushing my shoulder as he stepped away. The touch lingered, warm and electric, and I knew then that something had shifted. Jackson wasn't just curious. He was claiming me, in his own way, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. Gym class became the turning point. Jackson's save wasn't just a dodgeball catch, it was a statement. Whispers followed me for the rest of the day, classmates stealing glances, their murmurs a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Jackson Reed protecting Eli Carter? The flawed Omega? I wanted to crawl under a rock, but there was no escaping the spotlight now. By Monday, the rumors had spread like wildfire. I overheard two betas in the hallway, their voices low but sharp. He's got to be playing him, one said. No way Jackson's serious about a defective omega. The word defective stung, but it wasn't new. What was new was the ache in my chest, the fear that they might be right. Was Jackson toying with me? A cruel game to pass the time? I avoided him all morning, taking the long way to classes, keeping my head down. But Jackson wasn't so easily dodged. At lunch, he found me in the quad, sitting alone on a bench with my sketchbook. He didn't ask to sit. He just did, his presence overwhelming, like a storm rolling in. "You're avoiding me," he said, not looking at me, his eyes on the horizon. I clutched my sketchbook tighter. "Maybe I am." "Why?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like he was holding something back. I swallowed, my throat tight. "People are talking. They think you're messing with me because of what I am." His jaw clenched, and he turned to face me, his eyes blazing. "You think I care what they say? I don't know what you care about." I snapped, frustration spilling over. "You keep showing up, acting like I don't know, special or something. But I'm not. I'm the opposite. So what's your deal, Jackson?" He leaned closer, his scent wrapping around me, making it hard to think. "My deal is you," he said, his voice low and fierce. "I don't know why, Eli, but you're in my head. All the time. And I'm done pretending you're not." My breath caught, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "That's not an answer," I whispered, but it was weak, a defense crumbling under his gaze. "It's the only one I've got," he said, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his eyes. Vulnerability, maybe, or something close to it. Then he stood, leaving me with my sketchbook and a heart that wouldn't slow down. That afternoon, I went to the art room, needing to lose myself in paint and canvas. The rumors, Jackson, the weight of being flawed, it was too much. I was working on a piece, a chaotic swirl of blues and grays, when the door opened. I didn't need to look to know it was him. His scent hit me first, then his voice. "You're good at that," Jackson said, nodding at my canvas. I didn't turn around. "It's just a mess." "It's not a mess. It's alive." He stepped closer, his boots soft on the floor. "Like you." I laughed, bitter. "Alive? I'm barely here, Jackson. I'm the omega who doesn't work right. You should know that by now." He was behind me now, close enough that I could feel his warmth. "You work just fine," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Better than fine." I turned, paintbrush in hand, ready to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't just intensity, it was need, raw and unguarded. For a moment, we just stood there, the air thick with unspoken words. Then he reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek, wiping away a smudge of paint. The touch was so gentle it hurt, like it was peeling back layers I'd spent years building. "You don't see it," he said softly. "But I do." I stepped back, my heart racing. "See what?" "You." He didn't elaborate, but the word hung between us, heavy with meaning. Before I could respond, he left, the door clicking shut behind him. The next few days were a whirlwind. Jackson didn't back off, but he didn't push too hard either. He'd show up at my locker, walk me to class, sit near me in the library, small things that felt huge in a school where I'd always been invisible. Mara was thrilled, of course, calling it the romance of the century, but I wasn't so sure. Every time Jackson got close, my instincts screamed to run. Not because I didn't want him, I did, more than I'd admit, but because I didn't trust it. How could someone like him want someone like me? On Thursday, things escalated. I was in the cafeteria, trying to ignore the stares, when a group of alphas approached. The leader, a guy named Derek, was all smirks and swagger. "So, Eli," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think you can just waltz in and steal Jackson Reed? What's a flawed omega got that we don't?" The cafeteria went silent, all eyes on me. My face burned, but before I could speak, Jackson was there, stepping between us. His presence was a wall, unyielding. "Back off, Derek," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Derek laughed, but it was nervous. "Come on, man. You can't be serious about him." Jackson's eyes darkened, and for a moment, I thought he might hit him. But he just stepped closer, his voice dropping to a growl. "Say one more word about him, and you'll regret it." Derek backed down, muttering something under his breath, and the group slunk away. Jackson turned to me, his expression softening. You okay? I nodded, but my hands were shaking. Why'd you do that? I asked, my voice barely audible. Because no one talks about you like that, he said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Not while I'm around. For the first time, I didn't argue. I just looked at him, seeing not just the feared alpha but the boy who'd chosen to stand up for me. And in that moment, I realized I was falling, hard, fast, and without a safety net. The cafeteria incident changed everything. Jackson wasn't just a shadow trailing me anymore. He was a shield, a presence that made the whispers quieter, the stares less sharp. But it also made me a target. By Friday, the rumors had twisted into something uglier. Eli's using Jackson. He's faking it to get attention. A flawed omega doesn't deserve an alpha like that. Each word was a knife, cutting deeper because part of me believed them. I tried to keep my head down, focusing on school, on my art, on anything but the growing pull I felt toward Jackson. But he was relentless. Monday morning, he was waiting at my locker, a coffee in hand. Black, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. Thought you might need this, he said, his voice casual, but his eyes searching. I took the coffee, my fingers brushing his, that familiar jolt sparking through me. You don't have to do this, I said, avoiding his gaze. People are talking. It's making things worse. Let them talk, he said, stepping closer. I don't care. But I do, I admitted, my voice small. I'm not worth this, Jackson. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist, not hard, but firm enough to make me look at him. Don't say that, he said, his voice low and fierce. You're worth more than all of them combined. My breath hitched, and for a moment, I couldn't move, caught in the intensity of his gaze. Then the bell rang, snapping me out of it. I pulled away, muttering a thanks, and hurried to class, my heart a chaotic mess. That afternoon, I stayed late in the art room, working on a new piece, a storm of reds and golds, inspired by the fire in Jackson's eyes. I was so lost in it that I didn't hear the door open. When I looked up, Jackson was there, leaning against a table, watching me with that unreadable expression. You're always here, he said, not accusingly but curiously. It's where I feel normal, I said, setting my brush down. No designations, no expectations. Just me. He nodded, like he understood. Can I see? I hesitated, then stepped aside, letting him look at the canvas. His eyes traced the swirling colors, and for a moment, he was quiet. Then he said, It's beautiful. Like you. I laughed, nervous. You don't have to flatter me. It's not flattery, he said, turning to face me. It's the truth. The air felt too thick, too warm. I took a step back, my back hitting the wall. Jackson, why are you doing this? You could have anyone. Why me? He closed the distance, his hands braced on the wall on either side of me, caging me in but not touching. Because no one else is you, he said, his voice rough. I've tried to fight it, Eli. I've tried to stay away. But every time I see you, every time I smell you, it's like I'm waking up for the first time. My heart pounded, my body trembling under the weight of his words. You don't know what you're saying, I whispered. I'm flawed. I can't bond properly. You'd be stuck with someone who can't. I don't care, he cut me off, his voice fierce. I don't want to bond. I want you. Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. A soft, tentative touch that set my world on fire. I froze, then melted, kissing him back, my hands finding his chest. It was desperate, hungry, like we'd both been starving for this. When we pulled apart, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. Not unless you tell me to. I didn't tell him to. I couldn't. The next few days were a blur of stolen moments. Jackson meeting me after class, his hand brushing mine in the hall, his voice low and warm when he spoke my name. But the rumors grew louder, and so did the hostility. On Wednesday, I found Flawed scrawled across my locker in red marker. My stomach churned, but Jackson was there before I could process it, his face dark with anger. Who did this? He demanded, his voice a growl. I don't know, I said, my voice shaking. It doesn't matter. It matters to me, he said, grabbing a rag from a janitor's cart and wiping the word away, his movements sharp and precise. When he was done, he turned to me, his expression softening. "No one gets to hurt you, Eli." "Not anymore." I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. That night, I lay awake, replaying our kiss, the warmth of his hands, the way he looked at me like I was enough. But the world didn't see me that way, and I wasn't sure I could handle the weight of being Jackson Reed's choice. On Thursday, things took a darker turn. I was walking home through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under my feet, when Derek and his crew appeared, blocking my path. "So," Derek sneered, "you think you're special now, huh? Jackson's little pet." "Leave me alone," I said, my voice steady despite the fear curling in my gut. Derek stepped closer, his alpha scent sharp and aggressive. "You don't belong with him. You're nothing. A mistake." Before I could respond, a shadow loomed behind him. Jackson. His presence was a storm, his eyes blazing. "Get away from him," he said, his voice deadly calm. Derek turned, smirking. "What? You're going to fight me for him?" In a flash, Jackson had Derek pinned against a tree, his forearm against his throat. "Touch him again," Jackson growled, "and you won't walk away." Derek's crew backed off, and after a tense moment, Derek raised his hands in surrender. Jackson let him go, and they scattered. He turned to me, his eyes softening. "You okay?" I nodded, but I was shaking. He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. I let myself feel safe, even if just for a moment. Jackson's embrace in the park lingered in my bones, a warmth I couldn't shake. For the first time, I let myself believe he meant it, that he saw something in me worth fighting for. But belief was fragile, and the world was relentless. By Friday, the school was a pressure cooker, the rumors now a roar. Jackson's lost it. Eli's manipulating him. An alpha like that with a flawed omega? It's unnatural. I tried to ignore it, but every glance, every whisper, felt like a punch. Mara noticed, pulling me aside in the library. "You look like you're carrying the world, Eli. Talk to me." I sighed, pushing my glasses up. "It's just too much. Jackson's amazing, but everyone thinks I'm a fraud. Like I'm tricking him or something." Mara's eyes softened. "You're not tricking anyone. He's choosing you. That's real. But what if they're right?" I whispered. "What if I'm not enough?" She grabbed my shoulders. "You are enough. And Jackson knows it. Stop letting them get in your head." Her words helped, but only so much. That afternoon, Jackson found me in the art room again, his presence a quiet anchor. "You're upset," he said, not a question. I didn't look up from my canvas. "People think I'm using you, that I don't deserve you." He stepped closer, his hand resting on mine, stilling my brush. "They don't know us," he said. "They don't know you." I met his eyes, searching for doubt, but found none. "Why me, Jackson? Really, you could have anyone." He smiled, a rare, soft thing that made my heart ache. "Because you're real. You don't pretend, you don't play games. You're just you, and that's everything." I wanted to argue, but his words sank in, filling cracks I didn't know I had. He leaned in, kissing me softly, and for a moment, the world disappeared. But the world always comes back. On Monday, I found a note slipped into my locker. "Stay away from him, or you'll regret it." My stomach dropped, but I didn't tell Jackson. He was already on edge, his protective streak flaring every time someone looked at me wrong. I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. That afternoon, I was in the quad when Derek and his crew cornered me again. This time, Jackson wasn't there. "You didn't listen," Derek said, his voice low and menacing. "Jackson's ours. You're nothing." I backed away, my heart racing. "I'm not trying to take him," I said, my voice shaking. "Just leave me alone." Derek grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "You don't get it, do you? You're a mistake. A glitch." Before I could react, a fist connected with Derek's jaw, sending him sprawling. Jackson stood there, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. "I told you," he growled, "stay away from him." Derek scrambled to his feet, his crew hesitating. "You're choosing him over us?" Derek spat. "He's nothing." Jackson stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. "He's everything. And if you touch him again, you're done." Derek backed off, but his glare promised trouble. Jackson turned to me, his hands gentle as he checked my arm. "You okay?" I nodded, but fear lingered. "They're not going to stop," I said. "This is just going to get worse." Then we'll face it together, he said, his voice steady. I'm not leaving you, Eli. That night, Jackson walked me home. The streets of our small Colorado town were quiet, the stars bright above us. We didn't talk much, but his presence was enough. When we reached my house, he stopped, his hand brushing mine. I meant what I said, he told me. I'm not going anywhere. I looked at him, the boy who'd turned my world upside down, and felt something shift inside me. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of you. Of this. Us. He nodded, like he understood. Me too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. He kissed me then, slow and deep, and for the first time, I didn't feel flawed. I felt whole. The next day, school was a battlefield. Derek and his crew spread new rumors, uglier ones, accusing me of things I couldn't repeat. Jackson was a storm, his anger barely contained, but I begged him to let it go. Fighting them won't change their minds, I said. It'll only make it worse. He didn't like it, but he listened. Instead, he stayed closer, his presence a constant shield. And slowly, I started to see myself the way he did, not as a flaw, but as something more, something worth fighting for. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of hope and fear. Jackson and I were something now, undefined, unspoken, but real. Stolen kisses in the art room, quiet walks home, his hand in mine under the cover of dusk. But the school didn't let us forget. The rumors grew vicious, and Derek's crew wasn't done. I found more notes in my locker, each one crueler than the last. You'll ruin him. Leave before it's too late. I didn't show Jackson the notes. He was already a coiled spring, ready to snap at anyone who looked at me wrong. But keeping secrets from him felt wrong, like I was betraying the fragile thing we'd built. So one evening, as we sat on a park bench, the autumn air sharp with the promise of winter, I told him. They're threatening me, I said, pulling the crumpled notes from my pocket. They want me to stay away from you. Jackson's face darkened as he read them, his hands shaking with barely contained rage. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want you to fight them, I said. You're already in enough trouble because of me. He grabbed my hand, his grip tight. This isn't your fault, Eli. None of it. But it feels like it is, I whispered. They think I'm dragging you down. What if they're right? He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. They're not. You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm right where I want to be. His words were a lifeline, but the doubt lingered. That night, I lay awake, wondering if I was strong enough to be what he needed. Jackson was fearless, but I wasn't. I was still the kid who'd been branded flawed, still afraid of breaking under the weight of everyone's judgment. The breaking point came at the homecoming game. The stands were packed, the air electric with cheers and the scent of popcorn. Jackson was on the football field, a star player, his every move commanding attention. I sat with Mara, trying to blend in, but eyes kept finding me. Whispers followed, sharp and cutting. Halfway through the game, Derek and his crew found me in the bleachers. Enjoying your little fantasy, Omega? Derek sneered, his voice loud enough to draw attention. Jackson's gonna wake up and see you for what you are, nothing. Mara stood, ready to fight, but I grabbed her arm. Don't, I whispered. It's not worth it. But it was too late. The crowd parted, and Jackson was there, still in his football gear, his face a mask of fury. He'd heard everything. You don't learn, do you? He said to Derek, his voice low and dangerous. Derek smirked, but it was shaky. Just telling the truth, man. He's not worth it. Jackson stepped closer, the air crackling with his alpha presence. You don't get to decide that, he said. Then, in front of the entire school, he turned to me, his eyes softening. He reached for my hand, pulling me to my feet. Eli's worth everything, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And if any of you have a problem with that, you deal with me. The crowd was silent, stunned. Then Mara started clapping, and others joined, a slow ripple that grew into applause. Derek's face twisted, but he backed off, his crew following. Jackson didn't let go of my hand, and for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. After the game, we slipped away to the art room, the only place that felt like ours. Jackson was still buzzing with adrenaline, his hands restless. I meant it, he said, pacing. Every word. I know, I said, my voice steady for once. But you didn't have to do that. You put a target on your back. He stopped, turning to me. You're worth it, Eli. You always have been. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of you, but of losing this. Losing you. He pulled me into his arms, his lips brushing my forehead. You're not going to lose me, he said. Not now, not ever. We kissed, slow and deep, and for the first time, I let myself believe it could last. But deep down, I knew the fight wasn't over. Derek and his crew wouldn't stop, and the world beyond Willow Creek High was just as unforgiving. But with Jackson beside me, I felt something new, hope. Homecoming was a turning point, but not an ending. Jackson's public stand made us untouchable for a while, but hate doesn't vanish, it festers. Derek and his crew went quiet, but their glares followed us, sharp as knives. I tried to focus on Jackson, on the way he made me feel, seen, wanted, whole, but the weight of the world kept pressing in. One evening, as we walked through the park, Jackson stopped, his hand tightening around mine. You're quiet, he said. What's wrong? I hesitated, then told him the truth. I'm scared this won't last. That one day you'll realize I'm not enough. He turned to me, his eyes fierce. Eli, you're more than enough. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I wanted to believe him, but years of being called flawed didn't vanish overnight. What happens after high school? I asked. The world out there. It's worse than Willow Creek. Then we face it together, he said, his voice unwavering. I'm not letting you go. His certainty anchored me, but it couldn't erase the fear. That night, I went home and found a letter in the mail, a response from the designation clinic. My heart sank as I read it. Further evaluation required. Potential reclassification. The words blurred, my hands shaking. Reclassification? After years of being told I was broken, now they wanted to poke and prod again? I didn't tell Jackson. I couldn't. He'd want to fight the system itself, and I wasn't ready for that war. But the letter haunted me, a reminder that my place in the world was still uncertain. The final blow came a week later. I was in the art room, finishing a painting, a portrait of Jackson, his eyes fierce and soft all at once, when Derek burst in, alone this time. His face was twisted with rage, his alpha scent overwhelming. You think you've won? He spat. Jackson's making a fool of himself, and you're letting him. I stood, gripping my brush like a weapon. Get out. He stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. You're a glitch, Eli. You'll ruin him. And when you do, he'll hate you for it. His words hit every insecurity I tried to bury. Before I could respond, the door slammed open, and Jackson was there, his presence a storm. Get away from him, he growled, shoving Derek back. Derek laughed, but it was hollow. You're throwing everything away for him. You'll regret it. Jackson didn't flinch. The only thing I'd regret is letting someone like you hurt him. Derek lunged, but Jackson was faster, pinning him to the wall. This ends now, Jackson said, his voice deadly calm. You come near Eli again, and you're done. Derek's eyes flickered with fear, and he nodded, stumbling out when Jackson let him go. The room was silent, the air heavy with the aftermath. Jackson turned to me, his face softening. You okay? I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. I can't do this, I whispered. I can't keep dragging you into this. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip gentle but firm. You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I broke then, the weight of everything crashing down. I got a letter, I blurted. The clinic wants to retest me. They think. Maybe I'm not what they said. But what if I am? What if I'm just broken? Jackson pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. You're not broken, he said, his voice fierce. You're Eli, my Eli. And no test, no clinic, no one gets to tell you who you are. I clung to him, letting his warmth anchor me. For the first time, I believed him, not just because he said it, but because I felt it. I wasn't just a flawed omega. I was me, and that was enough. The retest came and went. The results? Inconclusive. They couldn't pin me down, couldn't box me into their rigid categories. And for the first time, I didn't care. Jackson had shown me something better, a world where I didn't need to fit, where I could just be. We faced the rest of senior year together, hand in hand, through whispers and glares and moments of quiet joy. Derek and his crew faded into the background, their power broken by Jackson's unwavering choice. And when graduation came, Under a sky painted with stars, Jackson pulled me close, his lips brushing mine. "We did it," he whispered. "And we're just getting started." I smiled, my heart full. "Yeah," I said. "Together." The world would always have its judgments, its boxes, its rules. But with Jackson by my side, I knew I could face them. Not as a flawed omega, but as Eli Carter, someone worth loving, someone worth fighting for. And that was the greatest victory of all.